Musical Talk, the UK independent musical theatre podcast.
Hello, welcome to Musical Talk. My name is Nick Hudson. I'm sitting here in a brand new studio with brand new equipment with some very old friends. Dom, hello Dom, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Nick.
And Mr. Mike Dixon, legend, how are you, sir?
The legend is absolutely fine.
Your foot.
Yes.
Your game's afoot. I wanted to have a general chat with you about what the world's up to at the moment, but I the last couple of days I've been listening a lot to Grease.
Bless you for that.
I know. I like Grease, but this is what I want to talk about. And Dom, you said to me yesterday...
Saying that it was interesting, my contribution to this is probably just throwing out the weird, odd facts, and this is just my brain going off down weird tangents, but I wondered whether it has now become slightly... how the boyfriend has developed. The boyfriend started off as a spoof and is now no longer seen as a spoof, and Grease started off as a spoof, is now turned into a complete... So that's where my...
and was that because of a film that it changed?
I don't know. I think it... I think it changed before the film. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into that, but the film certainly made... Because I remember the film coming out and everybody flocked to the cinema to see it.
The film? Was it 75 or
Something
79?
Like that.
Yes.
But what about the film for the boyfriend? Was that when it changed?
No.
Okay.
No,
was it Broadway that
because
changed?
no one talks about the film of the boyfriend.
Okay.
No, because the film
Ken Russell.
was it Twiggy in it?
Yes, and Christopher
Twiggy.
Gable and
Chris
Tommy
Gable, that's right.
Tune.
Tommy Tune.
See, Dom knows all this
right.
stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
Old
That's right.
films and things.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother episode.
That
Film
is
of the
quite an
Boyfriend.
interesting one.
So I was listening a lot to the kind of... Because I did a production of Grease at school. The Musical Talk has been running for so long. I can't remember if we've had this discussion or not, Mike. But I did a production of it, and the only version I knew was your version of Grease, which I thought was the film. Which is the film. I didn't know there was an early original version of Grease with all these songs in it. Like Alone at the Drive-In movie, the Alma Mater parody, and things. And your production of Grease was the first one on stage to really change it, wasn't it?
Yeah, I just to give you a little history of where I came and how I came into Grease. So it was 1993. I'd been conducting Joseph at the Palladium for like 18 months or so. Actually, I lie. It was 1992 when I got the call. And I got a call to consider whether I wanted to be involved in Grease. And I went and had a meeting with David Gilmour, who directed it, and had a very interesting meeting with him. And he then proceeded to tell me that because Robert Stigwood was part of the producing triumvirate with Paul Nicholas and David Ian, we were going to be in a situation where for the very first time, all those big hits from the movie were going to be put on stage. And the idea was to put those songs on stage. However, we then went on to discuss, are we going to try and make it into a representation of the movie, or are we going to do our own hybrid version, just using those songs? And that's what we ended up doing. We ended up not trying to copy the film, because that seemed to be a hiding to nothing, and if you wanted to see the film, go see the film. But obviously we needed to keep a few little iconic moments. So in the discussions with Arlene Phillips about the choreography, yes, I wrote a new dance break, and I wrote a new dance break for Hand Jive and various other moments during the show. But of course we had to keep some of the iconic moves. So the hands going out, the Go Grease Lightning hands, which obviously work really well on radio.
For those who are not in the room, Mike Dixon is now standing on a car that has changed in pitch black to a limousine.
Yeah, absolutely. So we, Arlene obviously had to keep a few little moments. But musically, I actually was kind of given free rein, and I remember. I think the very first thing that I put down on paper which was just after Christmas, 92, before we went into rehearsals in early 93, the first thing I put on paper was the opening Sandy going into Grease is the Word. and the idea was that you have Danny and Sandy in isolation, separate places on stage, but together, looking to wistfully singing a little bit of Sandy, where she sings Danny and he sings Sandy, and then whoop, we go bang straight into Grease is the Word and the full company running on coming on stage.
And were Warren, Casey and Jim Jacobs around at this point?
Well, Warren sadly died, I'm not sure when, it might be 1973, so before we were involved, I think before the
film as well.
Before the film.
That's tragic.
It might be worth checking that with dear...
Fact check,
Dave,
let's get on with it.
Fact check. But, so Warren wasn't around, but Jim Jacobs was, and Jim Jacobs was there for all the rehearsals.
And he was music and was he book? Or?
Well, they were a mixture of both. But the really fascinating thing was when
Dom's found a fact.
Yes, in 1988 he died.
There we are, 1988. Yes. I was entirely right.
By about 15 years.
Yes, well, according to some politicians, I'd be completely right. Only 15 years out. Anyway, so we were. I think one of the really interesting things that came out from working with Jim was that the original concept for the piece, when it was written in the mid to late 70s, was a much grittier piece. And when they did it in Chicago first, it was much more of a play with some songs. And it was when it then moved to Broadway after that a lot of the grit was taken out of it. Jim would have loved to have put the grit back in, but in truth, we got into this situation where I suppose everybody was.
You should have called it grit.
Grit, yeah, exactly.
Grit is the word.
Grit is the word. But you couldn't put all the grit back in, because it would have made it not acceptable for under 12s. I mean, it was really quite difficult. But the other thing that was fascinating was that all the characters came from friends of Jim and Warren. So they were people they were at college and school with. Mm. So Danny Zuko, I think the real Danny Zuko ended up being a postman or something. It's really sad. There was like or a garbage man or something.
And was he actually called Danny Zuko? Or?
He was called. I think he was called Danny and another surname.
Okay.
So everybody, all those
Danny Pink.
yeah, Danny Pink. But all those, actually, that's Doctor Who, isn't it?
Oh, I don't know.
It is. That's a Doctor Who character.
Daniel.
That's a Doctor Who character. Yeah, it is. I'm sure.
I'll take your word for
it.
Anyway,
we'll get told.
Dom, check it.
I should know this, but
and where was I?
So all the characters were based on people that.
Yes. So Rizzo, Rizzo. I think what they did was they took somebody's character.
He was a Muppets fan, was he?
Yeah, they took somebody's character and then put somebody else's name on it. So Rizzo was not. That wasn't how the real Rizzo was like. Rizzo was probably much more like Patty or something. But.
And what people don't get about Grease nowadays is they say, oh, it's offensive, and it's the fact that the woman is turning bad for the guy. And what people need to know is that it's parodying the 50s film concept of when the guy would turn. That the girl would convince the guy to go from bad to good.
And all the Sandra Dee movies, who's actually
absolutely
referenced, isn't it?
Yeah. Look at me, I'm Sandra Dee.
Which I didn't get as a child.
What's the next line, Mike? Because
lousy with virginity.
I remember watching it with my dad, and he roared with laughter at that line. And I said, why is that so funny?
Lousy with virginity.
You'll find out when you're older.
It's a great lyric.
But I remember when it came out and going to the cinema, and we all went to see it, and it was the first time going to see something, and we were aware that was a rude line. We didn't understand it, and I think they actually say enfant goût, don't they?
The chicks all cream.
And the chicks all cream.
But as children, we didn't know that, and we went, and it was so the film was had an innocence about it, even though we knew that there was naughtiness in it as kids.
Ain't no shit, lots of tit and all
Oh,
that.
yeah. Well, Ain't No Shit, Lots of Tit got changed. We did it first in 93, but then one of the iterations of the tour, it was decided that it was just a little bit too risque for all the toddlers.
And I loved it
kids
as a
who were
kid
coming.
as well, so it appeals to children somehow.
But the swearing in it and the naughtiness in it it's certainly at the level that it had become from the
Yeah, I mean,
it's
not many
more
people.
disguised,
Not
isn't
many
it?
people get the guys would get on their. Most girls would get on their knees to have a ride in my car.
Yeah.
No, of course.
Which of course is terribly rude, but just gets you ignore it, don't you?
Sign of good writing as well.
Well, yeah.
So, well, I mean, I remember when we did it at school, we had the Alma Mater parody, which is an excellent school song, which then gets twisted round, and the whole thing was set at a school reunion. So when was that decided to skip all that and
Well,
go
as soon
for your
as soon
opening,
as we
which
were
worked
using,
as well?
as soon as we were using the when we knew that we are going to definitely use these songs, the songs from the movie, then obviously those moments disappeared, because also Jim was then trying to sort of meld the book and between Jim and everybody who was involved in putting the book together, David Gilmour principally, and just making it all work. It was like, well, if people they're going to be expecting to hear the songs from the movie, that ain't in the movie. You know, we keep some songs. You know, like we do a proper version of Mooning, and we did Alone at the... No, we did...
Those Magic Changes.
Those Magic
And Raining on Prom Night.
Raining on Prom Night is the
Yes.
one. Is
Freddie
the
My
one
Love
we
as
did.
well.
Yeah. Oh, so I've got a lovely story of Freddie My Love, which wasn't to do with rehearsals. It was to do with a few months later. And dear listener, sometimes when you're a musical director on a long-running West End show, and you are up on the back of the stage on a raised rostrum that's hidden away for 90% of the show, and you're behind a whole set of screens with your orchestra, sometimes your mind wanders. Now, also, sometimes you know how long the gaps are between numbers, and you might be involved in a game of Scrabble with some of your fellow musicians. I'm not suggesting that any young
Theoretically speaking, isn't it?
I'm not suggesting that any young musical directors follow this as advice. In fact, it would be something to not do. But I'm afraid yours truly found himself in the middle of a rather interesting game of Scrabble, and we were about 3-4 months into the run, and I had a really good set of letters. And I knew that I could get
C, U, and E by any chance?
no.
That
I
you
think it was yeah. Thank you.
It's all right.
Thank you. Q. Yes, I was thinking of another word beginning with CU, but there we are. Anyway, so with my 7 letters, I'm trying desperately to think of what to do, and then all of a sudden, bass player, Mike, and I came out of my Scrabble reverie to see on the TV screen in front of me the wonderful Charlotte Avery, who was playing the character that sang Freddie, and she was standing in the middle of the stage on the second line of the song, spoken. So I'm afraid yours truly had completely missed the cue. Hang on, and so all I could do was throw, shout to the band and lay down a downbeat and hope that we could sort of find our way through. Anyway, she started once I started playing the music, she started singing. Now I didn't know how long it had been before. You know, she'd obviously got to a point where she was waiting for the band, and nothing happened, and then she thought, I'll just start speaking the words. So I thought, at the end of this, now coming up to the interval, poor Charlotte is going to be in a real state. and I'm not feeling that great about this, to be honest. So I thought, well, the only thing I can do is go straight to her dressing room. So I went up the stairs, straight to her dressing room, knocked on the door, and she opened the door with a fairly glum look on her face, and I just fell prostrate, in fact, not prostate.
Your prostate,
Prostate, yeah. Prostrate in front of her with my arms out, saying, "Mea culpa, I am so sorry."
And not my microphone, prostate first.
And she said to me, obviously she was upset at that point, but she said, I looked up, she said, and I could see on the TV screen, because the TV screen of the MD is always visible, attached to the dress circle, So she could see that I was paying absolutely no attention. She could see that the band weren't going to play anytime soon.
It's interesting that the band didn't strike up without you. I mean, this is a really naive question, but is the conductors that important that they are waiting, even they all know that they should be playing? Yeah. They were just waiting for you.
Yeah.
Because Freddie My Love starts with a guitar chord, doesn't it?
No, it started with a tutty moment. It was a tutty moment. Then
the guitar chord. Yeah.
Then the guitar chord. Freddie My Love. Yeah. So I sort of got away with it. I wasn't best pleased with myself.
Never happened again, though, did it?
Well, no, it didn't happen again. Also, but actually, what it did do was it pointed out that the song isn't really that necessary in the piece. And about 4 months later, it was cut completely anyway.
I never wondered what that song is for. She's singing to a photograph, isn't she?
I know. Well, it's because they've just had their pyjama party, haven't they? So they've just done their pyjama party, and it's the end of the pyjama party.
Was it possibly? I mean, I don't know. Was it from the original show?
Yeah.
So maybe it was a case that if they had, because it started off above a pub sort of thing, they were giving everybody a moment.
A moment, yes. So all the principal characters had a song.
Yes. So maybe it was that was her.
Is it Frenchie that sings it?
No, it's not Frenchie. It's Jan. Sexy Jan.
And it's interesting, Grease has had so many different versions. I mean, we even the sequel as well, which I know Warren or Jim was deeply against when that came out.
Yes.
But there's a couple of live... They did a live TV version of it. Did you ever catch that?
No,
America
I would have probably preferred sticking needles in my eyes.
And they did some interest, like Beauty School Dropout. It's done dreadfully, and it's all flat. And I love your version of it because it had humour in it, which it never had before.
Yeah, well, it did in the film. It is very funny, and I mean, that was the one thing that does, the fact that all the angels singing are the other girls, so the other Pink Ladies.
Absolutely.
So there's a very long note that the singer did, and.
Well, there's and the end, and we did a very
was that in Blue
we did
Moon?
A very interesting ending as well. We did because we did and then did a reprise too. But I mean, we could have gone an awfully long way with it, but we decided to keep it within the realms and the parameters. When they then subsequently did it on Broadway, they did a very different version,
a gospel version,
a gospel-y version, which for me didn't work.
It's not the era.
No, it's the wrong era for that music, as you say. But I did one of the highlights of putting that show together was obviously being in the room and with a fantastic set of actors. But one of the real highlights was sitting with dear Debbie Gibson and working out how we could make Hopelessly Devoted not ridiculously different from the way that
John Farrar.
Olivia, yes, that brain. The way that Olivia and John sang it, but just to give Debbie some little moment. So I don't know, in that original version, the '93 version, there's a big leap up thing that Debbie does, and that was her and me in a room for about half an hour, just fiddling around with riffs basically, and then we found this one, which then got put into the score. Funnily enough,
amazing.
Yeah,
it's a kind of Tammy Wynette country parody, isn't it? That song?
Well, it is really, yeah. I mean, it's a lovely song. You know, and actually, you know, one of my big things through my career has been the whole acting through song. And doing Grease, you think, well, they're all just pop songs. They're all just pop. They ain't.
No,
No.
they're proper
They
story.
absolutely
Summer
ain't.
Nights is an excellent.
Summer Nights is a great
exposition
story,
song.
absolutely. But even Hopelessly Devoted, which was written as a pop song for the movie, actually works fantastically
If you act through
in
it.
the show. If you act it, how many times do you have to say "Hopelessly Devoted to You"? How many times do you have to have a different thought process for that "Hopelessly Devoted"? Are you hopelessly devoted? Are you hopelessly, you know, what is it you're actually
To
saying? You are, absolutely. And so to make that work really, really well.
And Deborah Gibson. Was Debbie Gibson an actress first, or was she? I
think Debbie. I think she was, because she was a sort of child star, pop star, wasn't she?
Because I saw it with Craig McLachlan.
Yeah,
I want to say Sonia as well.
Yes, there's our second girl was Sonia. So Debbie did. I think Debbie did a year, and then Sonia joined, and Sonia just, you know, she just had a fairly good.
And I love the reprise of. Is it Hopelessly Devoted? There's a massive reprise that comes in.
Well, we do.
With a big ending.
We do there was a little orchestral Hopelessly Devoted that came in. Where did that come in?
Actually, it's Sandra Dee, the reprise, because the band just goes da 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 da.
Oh yeah.
She
That's
has
right.
that.
And then
Sandy
that's
has
right.
that, doesn't she? She has the
That's
reprise.
right. That's right. I've got it here because it was.
Mike has the. For those who are not in the room, Mike has the entire handwritten score that he's done.
Well, no, I haven't got the. I've got various bits of the handwritten score, but including my first attempt at the overture, and there was a dance. I've forgotten this. I wrote a dance break for. So we did the opening Sandy, going into Grease is the Word, and then in our original rehearsals, we also had a 32-bar dance break in Grease is the Word, and I have got that written down somewhere. Not that anybody would ever want to play it or look at it, but
I have a piano right here, Mike.
Yeah.
The first outing of this dance break.
So I'm just trying to. So there we are. So the Sandra Dee reprise. That's the one where she has this huge ending, and what I did for that Sandra Dee reprise was use the Grease is the Grease Lightning.
Okay.
A bit of the Grease Lightning dance break.
I never knew that.
So that.
Now, we mentioned this on the show before, but the thing I remember about Grease, and Mike probably knows where I'm going to go with this, is before the show started, there was a radio show playing. And when I was young, I was obsessed with radio, in case you couldn't tell, listeners. And I wanted to go out and I wanted to hear this radio show because it was almost a theme park-esque fake radio show that played before
Immersive audience experience
exactly.
before the show.
And Mike wrote the jingle.
Yeah. WAXX now.
And which subsequently I put in my school production of Grease. I hope you don't mind.
Well, I don't mind.
And I remember looking at the CD in MVC, which was a music shop we used to have here in Chiswick, and thinking, who the heck is Mike Dixon? And now...
Well, most people say that. Who the heck is Mike Dixon? So the history of that was that David Gilmour said one day in rehearsal, we had Vince Fontaine, the DJ, about to sort of talk to all the kids at school, but we needed some music to bring him on, and so David said, well, we kind of need a radio jingle, and I just quietly said, well, shall I just go away for half an hour and see if I can come up with something? So I went into a darkened room with a pen, a piece of paper, and a piano. That's very alliterative, isn't it? A pen, a piece of paper, and a piano. I've never done that before. That's good. Anyway, and I came out with papyrus, and I came out with the Radio Wax jingle, So also those lyrics are mine as well. They're not Jim's or Warren's.
PRS.
The sunny sound of radio
in your neighbourhood.
In your neighbourhood or something. Yeah.
And when was the idea of having it be this kind of audio experience?
Well,
before the show?
then obviously we come to thinking about the show in the theatre, and the producers said we kind of need music to bring everybody in, and so the wonderful Bobby Aitken, who was our sound designer, he put together a playlist of all these great 50s songs. So these were not pastiche; these were real 50s songs, and interspersed it with my jingle. So, and
but it had Vince Fontaine talking as well.
Yeah. And then,
so it really brought you into the world.
Absolutely. But it came about. It was again, the greatest thing about musical theatre is it's collaboration, and this was major collaboration because this was David Gilmour saying, "What about if?" And then Bobby coming up with something, me coming up with something, David then coming up with something, us recording Vince Fontaine, the lovely Gary Martin, to record some bits, and all strung together. And you make something that you thought was really special.
Did it have to change every time you had a new Vince Fontaine come in?
I think so. I think it did. But
so it becomes part of the role.
I think the simple way that was dealt with was that most of the Vince Fontaine bits were taken out, and so it just became the music with the odd jingle, and then whoever was playing Vince Fontaine would have the last little bit to talk about.
And it worked so well because I remember. This will sound really wanky, but kind of bringing the audience into the world. But kind of it led. There was almost no pre-show announcement, was it? It just kind of bled into the audience conscious of having.
Well, it was a warm-up, and with something like Grease, which is people really are aware what they're seeing. I mean, it really did. You know, you wouldn't go there seeing it, not knowing anything about it. So I remember I saw it in Brighton. I think I had a friend playing Roger, and when it was touring, and I remember that the second that those opening notes started, the audience just went crazy because and it was like the waiting. You've got all so you're not just sitting in a cold theatre. You're already being warmed up, and then second the notes happened, everyone just went mad. I mean,
well, there were two things that I'm particularly proud of with Grease. One is the overture, because basically I was given free rein to come up with an overture, and I thought to myself, and this was like, I don't know, just before rehearsal started, or maybe even in rehearsals, and I thought, well, what's it that everybody? If you say Grease, what does everybody think? They go dum do dum do dum do. So why don't I start with that, and why don't I start it low and build the phrase up higher, and then put a bit of the tune in, and then go into something else, and you get all sorts of interesting, fun and frolicking sort of bits and bobs happening with that overture. But then the other thing that I liked was that having been involved with Nigel Wright on Joseph, and then having been involved in putting the megamix together for Joseph back in 91.
So you're to blame for that?
No, I'm not to blame. It's a good thing. But no, it was Nigel put that together, and I helped in some small way, and so with Grease, it was a case of, well, we want to do a similar thing, but we want to do it without it all being at the same tempo. So our Grease megamix, which used 5 or 6 moments, it was to highlight main characters and give them all a moment, and I think it did work rather well.
And very kindly, Mike, you've actually given us permission. I haven't got it here, but to play the full overture from the show, which is really hard to find because it was missing from the cast album.
Yeah.
You made a 10-year-old very sad.
Yes, it made me sad as well, because I would have loved to have recorded it with our London band. But Nigel, who at that point was, the number one producer for musicals, his premise was, no, it's a pop album, not a musical theatre album.
Because it starts with the radio.
Yeah. So it does start with the radio thing, but then it goes into Sandy, and the Grease is the word. So he wanted to keep it like that. So when subsequently I did the show first of all I did it in Vienna, and then I did it in Germany, using my vocal arrangements and the wonderful Larry Wilcox, who was the orchestrator for those arrangements, for my arrangements. Marvellous, brilliant man. And we, for both the recordings in Vienna and in the German recording, I did record the overture. So I've got two versions.
Which is your favourite if we were to play one?
Ooh. Well, I don't know.
The Germans were more in time?
No, actually, I thought that the Viennese one had a bit more of a sort of hooligan attitude to it.
And do you think if the show were to come back and they were to do the Cast album, would you demand the...
Yeah, I would now.
Yeah.
I would now.
Because I hate that dance breaks and such get cut from
Yeah,
albums.
they got cut as well.
It used to be certainly when it was vinyl or records, as I like to call them. It was because often you'll get an old cast recording
Even
of a show
CDs even, they have a limit,
where
don't they?
Yeah.
But that's because it's nice. And weirdly, when you look at some old cast recordings, they've got songs that just aren't appearing on the album. But
absolutely.
I have a question which is kind of related, which is, has it gone so far now that you can't do the original gritty version, do you think?
Quite possibly. They did a version, didn't they, fairly recently up at the Curve. I don't know how much of sort of the original stuff. I think they were using some of the movie songs, but they tried to make it grittier. But I didn't see it. So I don't
the problem is it's so well known, and people going to it will expect.
You were saying earlier about the boyfriend and Sandy Wilson's Boyfriend, which was written as a pastiche. So we have to take into account that when Grease was written in the 70s, it was already 20 years after the 50s. It was already a pastiche, So yes, now, 60 years on from the 50s, we're 70 years on from the 50s.
Yes.
Blimey.
God.
You're looking through a very long lens at when it was created, which takes us to another lens to get us to when it was set.
Yes.
So it's a weird,
because I still think of Grease as the word, as a 70s song.
Well, I suppose it is, isn't it? Because it was written for the movie by the Gibbs, wasn't it?
But it doesn't sound 50s.
No, but that's why.
And even Frankie Valli, who's from the 60s.
I know, but Frankie Valli makes it sound legitimate to a degree. When we did it, our version in '93, the decision was that we wouldn't have solos. It would be a full company number. So my task was to make it work. And there's a bit of harmony in it, but a lot of it is unison.
I think it works, for me, it works better because it does feel a little bit...
But you add that to Arlene's amazing... and it's so simple, the choreography at the beginning, but it's the square of all the characters
with the white
walking
smoke
forward and the smoke coming through the smoke. And and what's fascinating with that is that production, which we put together in '93, was the longest running show at the Dominion. Then it moved to
Piccadilly,
Piccadilly. Then it moved to the Victoria Palace. Then it moved somewhere else. But all the time there was a tour going on. So that production in various iterations ran for 20 odd years.
And one of the cleverest logos.
But let me just finish. So with that production, every time you go and see it, you see the same choreography and the same costumes. Marianne de Fetitu, her costumes. And those characters would, of course, be being played by different people. But every time I saw a production of it, I saw Sally Ann Triplett playing Rizzo, and I saw Tamsin Outhwaite playing Patty Simcox, and I saw Craig, and I saw Debbie. And playing, for goodness sake, we'll have to do it.
Shane Ritchie,
thank you. Oh, dear.
So
keep that in.
And that's almost become a trend now, hasn't it? With the big cookie cutter shows that it's now moved to block A3, hand up here on this line, but it didn't feel like when I saw it, because I saw the tour. It didn't feel like the actors weren't still being able to be themselves. It still felt fresh, even though they were doing the original choreography or whatever.
Yeah, I think always with that sort of scenario, you try and invest, let the actor invest themselves into the character. So they're not trying to be, they're not trying to be Sally Ann Triplett being Rizzo. They're trying to be Rizzo.
Yes.
And that's a really important distinction. It's only from our point of view as being in that creative team and being part of seeing its first iteration. When you see it again and again and again, and 20 years down the line, I do still see Sally Ann wearing that skirt.
Yes. And it's interesting because it's an American musical, but there's never been an iconic American production like the British one.
No, was it Tommy Tune who did the one straight after us?
I'm not sure.
Look.
I think it was, which is quite interesting when you talk about the boyfriend, because of course it was Tommy Tune who did the boyfriend. I think it was Tommy
Worlds
Tune.
collide.
See?
But this production has never gone stateside, has it?
No,
the
there
Pink
was
Grease, I call it.
I'm quite sad that never happened because there was major talk once we'd been a success, and we didn't think we were going to be a success. We thought we were going to, 3 months and that'd be over. Goodbye Vienna, or even hello Vienna. But instead it was a huge success, and so we thought, maybe there's a chance of a Broadway here.
And I remember a music video filmed on the roof at the Dominion.
That's right, yeah.
The theatre you're probably most affiliated with.
Well, yeah, I have the 2 longest running shows at the Dominion Theatre.
You probably never want to sit in that pit again, do you?
Well, fortunately, both shows I didn't sit in the pit.
Oh, lucky. Because you were up on stage.
Yeah, because on Grease we were on a raised platform at the back that came forward, except on the night after opening night when it got stuck, and that's another story. And on We Will Rock You, we were on two sides of the stage above.
But it's a shame it never went to Broadway, because it's the most iconic production of Grease I associate with, probably because it's the one I saw and grew up with.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's my
find any
favourite.
link between Tommy Tune so this would have been the 1990.
It would have been 1994 production.
So Jeff Calhoun directed and choreographed it.
Oh, and that's what I'm getting mixed up. Tommy Tune and Jeff Calhoun.
I mean, amazing cast list of people who were in it. I mean, it's always had from the first production, didn't it? I mean, Richard Gere was in the London production.
In London, yeah.
And who was in we were watching him last night?
Barry Bostwick was the original Danny on Broadway.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Who was in my favourite Charles Strauss musical, Nick and Nora, which failed.
Nick and Nora.
So, and of course he's Brad in the original.
Did you ever see Flowers for Algernon?
I know it. That was Michael Crawford's.
Yeah, I saw it. I really enjoyed it.
Wow. Because I've heard
very long
both
time ago.
cast recordings. There's and was it Cheryl? Not Cheryl Baker.
No, it was Cheryl
Crow.
No.
Campbell.
No. Campbell.
Yes.
It was. Flowers for Algernon, and the poster had a swing on it, I think.
It's John Barry.
It's a very dark. No, it's Charles Strauss.
Charles Strauss. Yeah,
it's a very dark story.
It is. Yeah.
And then, of course, he was reunited. Michael Crawford was reunited with the rodent for Woman in White.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Well, thank you for taking us down Grease Lane.
Yes,
Mike.
But there is one other. There is one other interesting thing about Grease. We were just then talking about Richard Gere and all that. There's a fantastic link between Grease and Heidi High.
Well, I
leave that.
Was Sue Pollard in it by any chance?
Yes.
Well, she was. Yes, well done. She was in the production that was at the Astoria Theatre in the mid-70s.
And that was
about 78.
As Sandy?
Oh.
Or Frenchie? Or
no, she
Rizzo, or
was...
Danny?
Do you know, I can't
I think
remember.
she's Frenchy. Let me just...
Well, Sue Pollard is a seasonal musical theatre performer.
Oh, yeah. Sue's a great...
She was wonderful in Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah, she's a great turn.
Incredible.
A proper turn.
We saw her in Annie when we had her on the podcast years ago.
Sue Pollard was Cha-Cha.
She was Cha-Cha.
Tracy Ullman was Frenchy.
There you go.
And Tim Whitnell was Doody.
Tim Whitnell. Who was Danny?
Paul Nicholas and Elaine Page.
Elaine Page played Danny. That's amazing.
So Danny was Oh, this might just be a Wikipedia
it might
thing,
be.
because this is the new London theatre production. Was Richard Gere.
It was the one that was at the Astoria.
Yes. A later. It was revived at the London Astoria in 1979 with Sue Pollard as Cha-Cha, Tracy Ullman as Frenchie, and Tim Whitnell as Doody. So
It doesn't
say
else.
who the leads were.
Right.
Yes.
I remember seeing that one as well because my girlfriend at the time, her brother-in-law was the company manager. There you go.
All kinds
That's
of
a funny old bit of history coming back. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mike, for showing us, again, taking us down Grease Lane. Let's end this discussion. What the hell's going to happen with all this, Mike?
Well, I'm firmly of the opinion that I am now semi-required in terms of
Semi-retired?
No, semi-required as well. But no. Very seriously, obviously, the pandemic has caused a massive fallout of, and there will be ramifications for quite some time that we will have to deal with. What I sincerely hope and pray is that our young people, our 20s and 30 somethings, will find amazing new ways to create and innovate. And we've already seen all sorts of amazing things online, but I think that will develop, and I think it has to develop. Put simply, we will not be in a situation to be able to open theatres properly until we know that there's a vaccine, until there is a vaccine, until people are vaccinated. It ain't going to happen. So we're going to be in this situation where theatre, as we used to know it, will have to change. And as sad as that is, and as difficult as that is to really comprehend, and as much heartache and soul searching and panic and mental health issues that it's causing, we have to try and stay positive that we will find out, and it will be our young people who take us out of the doldrums.
I think as well is that, I mean, it's weird because we're going into winter, so it's a difficult time. I think if we have good weather next year, I think we're going to suddenly see an eruption of outdoor theatre venues, which I think is probably a way forward with it. I think, and I was lucky enough a couple of weeks ago to see a production of Hamlet.
Oh, fabulous.
And it was originally it was on Rotherhithe Beach, but then it was moved to this little Hyde Park. It was unpaid. You paid what you felt you wanted to. And they cut it down to 6 actors, and it was an hour and a half. And it was absolutely magical because they'd gone back to bare bones storytelling. Yeah. And you could have heard a pin drop. And it was... And I think we're having to go back to the real, to use a cliched phrase, a sense of theatre.
Yeah.
We're until we've got those things in place, until theatres have adjusted their toilets, and but I think it could be actually the birth of quite an exciting time as well, and people must not let go of that excitement and drive. Yeah. It's very easy to descend into a spiral of doom and gloom, and pity and all the rest of it, and however annoying and angry certain things make us feel, I think there's still a chance for some amazing creativity to come out, and I think
we're starting to see some of that happening. Katie Lipson's Contact, which is an amazing idea for a show. We just have to hold on, basically. That's what we have to do.
And be calm.
Be calm
and carry on.
Let those lovely young people go, I know, why don't we do this? Something that, no way on earth would I think of doing that.
And let's hope producers pick up on them and give them the support they need.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Because we also have to remember that we are a viable industry, even though our government might say that we're not. We are a viable industry, and we're full of people with immense amounts of talent that takes years and years and years to hone and make good. And therefore, doing what I suppose I'm basically saying by that is don't do too much for free. Obviously, we need to help as much as we can at the moment, but remember that this is our business.
Yes.
It's called show business.
Thank you, Mike. And thank you, Dom.
Thank you.
Let's end this episode with the overture from Greece, which is very rare. And Mike, thank you for letting us play it. The piano's... No, I'm joking, don't worry.
I'll be on drums.
Yeah.
We'll speak to you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
This episode of Musical Talk, copyright 2020, apart from the songs where the copyright persists with the original creators.